And so, yet another installment into the hidden history of the African American fighting man. You often hear about the fathers, founding fathers and grandfathers, or should I say stepfathers. I say that for a reason. I'll tell you why, ladies and gentlemen, because you see, it was George Washington who had to come to realize that the first American to fall during the Revolutionary War was, in fact, an African American, an escaped, formerly enslaved African American by the name of Crispus Attucks. When you hear about the shot heard around the world, it landed into the chest, into the very heart of one African American named Crispus Attucks, who wanted his freedom, by the way, but had joined the other colonists there to confront the redcoats. And needless to say, upon grabbing a large limb to defend him and his comrades, he was the first to be shot, and such began the Revolutionary War. Well, a rallying point, to say the least. So you would have thought, by an African American being the first to fall, that at the very least it would be a no-brainer that African Americans would be part of the Continental Continental Army, the American Army, the Minutemen. They were parts of the Minutemen now. There's no doubt about that. Free men of color and those formerly enslaved and others rallied to defend the young 13 colonies. Well, Washington didn't like that. George Washington. It was 1875 when Georgie Porgy Puddin' Pie kissed the girls and made them cry. Said this, I'm quoting, "You are not to enlist any deserter from the minstrel British Army, nor any stroller, Negro, or vagabond, or person suspected of being an enemy to the liberty of America." He said, he sent this to his compatriots, including Thomas Jefferson. Washington did not see the fight for American independence as being relevant to those enslaved, primarily because he was an enslaver, to say the least, a very large one there in Virginia. Well, he did something else. He decided to convene a council, the Council of War. He did that October 1775. Now, that Council of War included one Benjamin Franklin. Right. Washington put forward the whole concept. What was it? I'll tell you. He got the council to vote. I'm quoting now. And by the way, you could pull this up. You really can. He urged the council to vote unanimously, I quote, to reject all slaves and by a great majority of rejected Negroes altogether. Close quote. The following month, Washington ordered that neither Negroes, boys unable to bear arms, nor old men unfit to endure the fatigues of campaign are to be enlisted. Well, he should never ought to have done that, because he was fighting the British, and ladies and gentlemen, the British had already abolished enslavement. So Lord Dunbar decided, I'll tell you what we're going to do. For every Negro who joins the British lines, we're going to give you freedom. That happened in November. You realize, October, Washington and the council said no, Negroes, enslaved, are free men of color. By November, Lord Dunbar came forward to say, well, you know what? We're going to offer freedom to everyone who would make it to our lines. And they did in a very big way down in Florida. Hundreds of them. Thousands, one could argue. They even developed a regiment called the Ethiopian Regiment. So what did the Negroes fight for? America, you say? No. They're fighting for freedom, as all Americans fight. As all Americans fight. And it's only one piece of paper that represents that. Constitution at this point. But keep in mind, it only represents the freedom. Whether you're free or not is only your desire to defend it. It's got to be defended. Well, when Lord Dunbar with the Brits created got the Negroes coming off the plantation, Georgie Porgy Puddin' Pie would not be outdone. You see, there's one thing that bothered, that hurt the Continental Congress and the young 13 colonies. They didn't have enough men. Washington really thought that the white guys, only the white guys, colonists, could win this thing and that they will rush to defend the flag. Oh, that's right, we didn't have one then. Or rush to stand for the national anthem. Guess we didn't have that either. We really didn't even have a constitution. I guess he thought that the Caucasians there, like Benedict Arnold, would rush in to defend the homeland. Well, he was wrong. When Lord Dunbar offered freedom to those enslaved, let me just tell you, it was a matter of weeks for Washington, at his own hand, to come back and say, look, we got to have them. Let's see, I want to get that exactly. By November, Washington changed his mind and decided to allow enlistment freedom of free men of color. Hang on, I want to get the actual thing here. You got to understand, he didn't convene the Continental Congress to do this. He just went ahead and did it, and if the Continental Congress had some exception, then they can come in and stop him, but I need to do it. Where is it? Let's see. No, he sent that to Hancock. By the way, John Hancock was also involved. Washington was talking to Hancock, Franklin, Jefferson. Okay, here it is. It has been represented to me, he wrote Hancock, that the free Negroes who have served in this army are very much dissatisfied at being discarded. And it is to be apprehended that they may seek employ in the minstrel army, meaning the British. I have presumed to depart from the resolution respecting them, and I have given license for them being enlisted. Please, with my wooden teeth. If this is disapproved by the Congress, I will put a stop to it. Well, very backhandedly, old Washington said, short, simple, and sweet, look, I didn't get enough of the quote-unquote white boys to fight. We need to get those brothers. And he did get those brothers. Thousands. Well over 5,000 to 8,000 African Americans fought in the Revolutionary War to make this country this country. And that has been the hidden history that most of you have not been privy to, particularly those individuals carrying tiki torches. Which brings me to this, folks. I had a very long weekend, a hurricane weekend, where I've been batting hatches, hunkered down, thanks to Nate. Had a chance to think about a lot of things, and I'm really quite PO'd. I'm quite fed up. With Americans being played like they are, not only being played, but just selling for the BS. From the person at the top, Donald John. Let me make some things perfectly clear. I grew up here in Mississippi. I was reared, thank God, and educated, thank God, in a segregated environment. I had African-American teachers from Mississippi City, a little two-room school, Mississippi City on Live Oak, to Sawyer City, to Church Street Elementary, all African-American schools, designed, ladies and gentlemen, during Jim Crow. Some of them were even new schools. Church Street, one of the newest schools back then, because they wanted to show, meaning white supremacists wanted to show that African Americans, that they were now finally investing money into at least the structure of African American schools. So from there, Church Street Elementary, I went to 33rd Junior High there, which is 33rd Junior High and High School, all segregated schools. In every one of those segregated schools, when my father was not allowed by ordinance to wear his uniform in Gulfport, in every one of those schools, I was taught to pledge allegiance to the United States. Every one of those schools. where my parents were not allowed to vote, I was taught the Pledge of Allegiance, and we said the Pledge of Allegiance. Before every football game in those segregated schools, we sang the national anthem. Every one of them. Very proudly, too. I want to make this very clear. Patriotism has never been a question of African Americans in this damn country since Crispus Attucks was killed in Lexington. Dying for freedom is not something that that free men do easily. Dying for freedom is what enslaved men do best. It's about time that some of you back off this concept and challenge those like our president who somehow or another feels that there's some litmus test for being an American because you stand, sit, swallow. Especially as it applies to African Americans, the millions who have been called upon to defend this country, and had they not responded like in 1775, we wouldn't have a country. Free men of color and those formerly enslaved wasn't enough. We had to go get Haitians. Sick of it. And it's about time for African Americans to know your history and be able to say something more than, oh, we were slaves once. You hadn't seen a greater fighting force. We're physically built for it. The weaker of African Americans died off in triangular slavery in the West Passage, coming from Africa. They bred it out. You want to know why? Jimmy the Greek was right when he was talking about the mere fact that there is no doubt about the fact there is absolutely no doubt about the fact that we have more than the ability physically to do what needs to be done. Be it on the field, be it on the court, or be it in the trenches. You don't believe it? Just read the histories, as have I. You know, folks, I'm fed up. So now we've got Mr. The big liar sitting there in the White House has now come up with the greatest part of his show called President of the United States, the reality show. He gets Mike Pence to go down to San Francisco. This is, look, it spent, where was it? I'm looking at $150,000, $175,000. Maybe more than that, at the expense of the American people, to go to San Francisco to go to a football game, Frisco. By the way, I don't watch football. I watch Saints. It's not football, that's a culture for me. Anything else, and when it comes to football and other men exercise, I only watch the last 2 minutes. It only comes down to that. I play it. I still love to play it. I really do. Whenever I don't pull a hamstring. So Mike Pence boards a plane and goes down to San Francisco just to have his own protest. He knew that there would be San Francisco 49ers taking a knee. There he is with his wife, hand over his right hand over his left heart, over his heart, and then leaves after the national anthem because there was a protest. All of it because Donald John said in his tweet it was all played out. We had planned this months ago. I mean, how often do you have to be played? You realize what this was? Here you have the president participating in a reality show. Basically, he's sending his VP, vice president of the strongest country in the world, to go and promote his agenda. You know what his agenda is? His agenda is suggesting that African Americans, particularly those individuals who are the elite, the strongest of the strong, are un-American, unpatriotic. Here you have a guy, and you got to understand me very well, how this is all played. He goes He goes to Alabama and complains. I think you have it. You have it over there. The president, but that's okay. You don't have to play it. The president says, okay, someone disrespecting the flag and the national anthem, as if that's the reason for their taking the knee. But nevertheless, I'd fire him. I would fire the SOBs. Well, guess what? He was fired. What's your complaint? The reason why he did that in Alabama when he did was to bring us to where we are. He's trying to pit again. He's trying to pit us against us, primarily suggesting that African Americans are not patriotic because most Caucasians and African Americans are unaware of the sacrifice of African Americans going back to the beginning of this country, going back to the Mayflower. See, you're unaware, so therefore it's an assumption that somehow or another, what, you just got Caucasians that have, oh yeah, they're the one who saved this country, and they alone. Every last bit of it. Most intelligent people know what I'm saying is true. But the president knows that most people that he's talking to there in Alabama and some others on listening to Oxford Conservative Talk Radio are not too intelligent. Or at the very least don't want to know about those brave men who sacrificed and still sacrifice. Don't want to know. But what annoys me the most about this whole national anthem thing, because it's not about the national anthem all the flag. What players are protesting now is Donald John. They're protesting anyone would call their parents an SOB, or their mom at least. They're protesting the mere fact that you have a president who's wanting to boycott their industry and promoting it. My God, how can you be pro-business and even talk about boycotting? And even more than that, the likes of a guy who was a draft dodger, who would come out and talk about a prisoner of war as if he didn't serve at all. He's not a hero. But more than that, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about a guy who insulted the parents of a Gold Star. But more than that, we're talking about a guy who has more Russians involved in his campaign and administration. More. Folks, I don't get it. You do realize in the campaign, when Donald John Bolton was making a contribution to the veterans, it took the press to force him after 3 months to produce that. This is the most unpatriotic. This guy didn't even know. Melania had to tell him which hand to use to put over his heart. What a pretense! I'm sick of it. I'm just sick of it. Let's see, where is it? Let's see, where is it? He's got it here. Let's see. Yes, this is this. Which one? Do they number these tweets? This is the first time I'm going to read a tweet. I asked VP Pence to leave the stadium if any player kneeled, disrespecting our country. I am proud of him. And Second Lady Karen. Let me tell you something, folks. Those of you who fall for this, and I do mean fall for this, are willingly doing it because of your own bigotries. This is all staged. All of this has been staged. But it's, contrary to what you might believe, it's staged to maintain the gullible. Those many of you who go for it. So Mr. Conservative spends well over $175,000 to fly here to send Mike Pence there to leave. You down for that? I mean, all of this is designed for this. He's trying to drum up what he thought made Ronald Reagan, helped Ronald Reagan win, and he did. He said tapped into this patriotic thing, and when you say patriotism, then you realize you're not talking Negroes, because after all, history has not shown that. I mean, you know, you've seen the movies. You know, as I do this, with all that is happening, I can't help but ask myself, where are we headed with this? I mean, we've got another 3.75 years to go with this guy. Can we sustain this? I don't think we can. Maybe that should be the question on Facebook, dude. Can you see America having this for the next 3.75 years? All right. There's a few other things I'm a little perturbed about. Charlottesville got another visit from a protest. Tiki Torch Nazis. We're going to be talking about that in my next hour. Then there's the crazy now. You know, I told you this was going to happen. Whenever there's a all-American boy, Caucasian, particularly a guy who's very wealthy, who goes off the deep end, killed, that white-on-white crime, I just want you to know that's justifiable. Oh, yeah. Be it Sandy Hook, or be it here, be it the theater there in Louisiana, or Texas, it's the white-on-white crime. Let me tell you, there's a reason for that. It can be terrorism. And you guys ought to be ashamed of yourself. And you don't know how you're setting yourself up for other little terrorists to come along and try to outdo the last one. We've killed 58. I can't come up with any social reason. He didn't have a Holy Quran. He didn't have a manifesto. Didn't even have a tattoo. Well, he had a swastika, but that's not. You can't count that. I don't know if he had a swastika. But I told you that this was going to happen. The little Caucasian guy can't be the terrorist because terrorist is reserved. It's become synonymous with either, Negro or Muslim or anything besides the freshly driven snowflake. And the reason that what bothers me about it is not a black against white thing for me, in quotes. What it is that it's weakening our country. Do you think for once I don't think that there is an African American terrorist? Think again. But never once think that there's not a Caucasian terrorist. There's plenty of examples.